Hello, everybody, and welcome to episode 39 of Ask the CEO with Abraham Gottheil. Today, I'd like to introduce a very special guest. She is the founder and CEO of national cybersecurity staffing company, CyberSN, and the not-for-profit organization, Brainbabe, as well as a strategic board member of the International Consortium of Minority Cybersecurity Professionals, working to include more women and diversity hires in the cybersecurity community. Prior to founding CyberSN and Brainbabe, she was the CEO of Percussion Software. Prior to that, the first VP of Sales at Rapid7, where she increased their revenue from $800,000 to $20 million in just under 4 years. Prior to that, at just age 26, she was VP of Sales for the national technical staffing agency, Motion Recruitment, because she herself was hired as an entry-level college graduate and trained to lead technology service organizations and cybersecurity organizations. She believes the tech community needs to expand its awareness of what it means to be in tech and what it means to be in cybersecurity. It is my honor and pleasure to welcome the one and only Deidre Diamond. Welcome, Deidre.
Awesome. Welcome. Thank you very much.
It's a pleasure having you. Where are you logging in from?
I'm in Boston.
Nice.
The heart of the city, where it's a little bit rainy, but it's a great city.
Yeah, I'm sure it is. I've been there many times. It's beautiful there.
It is. I love this city. It took me in at 22 years old. I moved from California to work here and never looked back.
Nice. So whereabouts in California are you from?
Southern California, Orange County. Graduated high school in Irvine and then went to Cal State Fullerton in Southern Cal.
Beautiful. So let me ask you, what was it like your very first winter in Boston?
It was hardcore. It was definitely hardcore. It was such an experience that the boots that I wore for that first winter that ripped and had holes in them and everything by the end of the winter, that the office had them bronzed for me as a remembrance because I went back to California. I was there for just the winter. And, it was so cute, but yes, it was pretty brutal.
Nice. So Deidre, what I love about your company is that not only do you serve the tech industry in the form of cybersecurity, but you also advertise how you leverage the latest in technology in order to help improve your service and lower costs for your clients. So tell me a little bit about CyberSN and what do you do?
Absolutely. So CyberSN is a national staffing firm. We have 2 arms today with a 3rd opening. I'll tell you about in a second. But information security professionals, both contract and permanent anywhere in the U.S. However, we have our main offices in Boston and San Francisco. And we also have a sales staffing arm. So cybersecurity, sales professionals. Because I've spent half my career in both focuses, it's really made sense to eventually we added the sales of client requests. So now we have those 2 arms, and our 3rd arm is our technology arm we've been building since day one because digital job searching is broken, completely broken. I can't let a lot out. We have a patent, in fact, today as an appointment of kicking off some things for us. So that 3rd arm is headquartered out of Pittsburgh, where our cyber professionals that are helping finalize this product are located. So that's what we're doing. Digital job searching is absolutely broken. It is very difficult to lower the cost to anybody, even with everything that we've got, because of how hard it is to find people with the tools we have today.
And isn't it interesting? Everybody knows people that are looking for work. So from the job searcher side, I believe it's broken too.
Yeah. There's so much emotion behind it being broken that's causing us all to settle and either take positions that we might not have taken if we really could have seen that there was more on the marketplace, or hiring managers who also feel the same way, that there aren't enough people to hire, settle after thinking they can't find them. And the truth is, the cost of finding them, they're out there. We are short over 1 million professionals. However, we also have cultures that aren't that great to work at. So 60% of the base is looking. And so, but the problem is finding the right person for the right job based on how we find each other today, based on SEO and everything that goes on with job searching or content searching. it's really a disaster. Everybody feels that it's too hard on both sides. And it does cost a lot of money to put the right team in to find them.
I can imagine. So you hit upon a word of SEO. So how does SEO come to play with job searching?
Yeah, well, there's content that is in all job descriptions. And in order to get that content found, you have to put keywords 10 to 15 times throughout your job posting. And so it really clutters the intent of communication, makes it very difficult to know what somebody's looking for, what they're looking to match.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, we've all been there searching for jobs, and we know how difficult it is. Why do you think it's so hard?
Well, I mean, the most challenging thing for humans is communications and staying together, right? Look at our divorce rates and how high they are, and we think it's going to be any different in the workforce where we actually spend more time together. It's not. And so I think this is the number one problem that we have, is our ability to communicate with each other such that we don't have to have so much breakdown. Really, our retention stats are terrible. People leave jobs on average every 18 months. I mean, that is just so quick. You know, how acclimated is somebody? And if they're leaving at 18 months, how long were they looking? Because we all know how long that takes. And then how long before they started looking were they unhappy and thus loss of productivity? So when we start to really dig into the statistic, it gets worse and worse in terms of our number one challenge out in the workforce. And I've been around technologists for 21 years and only recently started calling myself a technologist as I've watched the world evolve. However, I get that I'm, let's say in the old terms, not, and have been hanging around those who are selling their products, making sure they speak to each other, making sure they know how to speak to clients. I can tell you that it is, we are behind significantly. And as somebody who's also been in staffing agencies as long as I have, I see it all the time. People aren't leaving because of money. They're not leaving because they're not working with the latest and greatest technology. They're leaving because they're not liking where they're working, whether it's their boss or others. We can call the big bucket of culture. That's why they're leaving.
And that just points that back to the origin of how the position was filled in the first place.
Sure. Yes, absolutely. And the person that left looking for a better culture, did they find it when we're all doing such a terrible job? And I say we only because I'm with this community. I'm not judging. I live in it. Certainly, I'm not perfect at it, although I do pride myself on communication. I think it shows in working with the same founders for 20 years in 3 different companies. And, in that I have lived what I teach. And certainly what I'm preaching right now, which is we have got to get better at communication significantly. Yes.
For sure. So tell me about how your company works with their clients.
Sure. So the number one key to the piece of the puzzle is working with the hiring manager. This is a business of humans must like each other, want to work with each other, and there's a lot that goes into figuring that out. And when a resource like the folks at CyberSN is assigned to an account, it's only if we're working directly with the hiring managers, and certainly having a relationship with internal human resources and recruiting to make sure resumes get to the right place and compliance of systems. However, our interaction is with the hiring manager, and that's because they're the one that's going to make the call. They've got to be invested in filling the position, and it's really about them filling the job. So that's our number one requirement. That's how we work. We work with the hiring manager. If we have that kind of access, we're filling jobs within 30 days. And we won't work a job if we don't have that kind of access. So we're filling jobs in 30 days.
Yeah. So that's the key number one for communication. Cut out all the middlemen, and that's where the breakdown happens, I guess.
Yes, that is where the breakdown happens. Absolutely. Absolutely. Got to hear it from the horse's mouth. We've all played telephone when we were younger, and the message starts out one thing and it's totally different, after you bring that to business, like staffing and hiring, it doesn't work at all. It's actually a terrible waste of time for everybody. And unfortunately, it's what everybody's doing. In almost all organizations. It's since I joined the industry in '94, there's been this challenge of internal recruiting services of an organization and external and the hiring manager, and the relationship between those three is strained and challenged significantly because there's a lot of power and budgets and things that go on, and on the staffing side, it's a contingency based business, so who knows what kind of recruiter one's actually working with, because just about anybody could do it, and so there's no necessarily blame. It's just a broken system. It's a completely broken system. And so our goal is to, as professionally as possible, help folks understand that that's not the way to do this. We must, recognize that if a candidate is interviewing with us and that we're presenting to you, you don't need to also have your internal team interview that person before the hiring manager gets to see them. And this is what I mean by it's a broken system, because that time actually costs people whether or not they get to hire somebody. So meaning, once candidates start interviewing, they go very quickly. Mm-hmm. And so you can't have these extra layers of interviews. And so there's the most of the challenge is helping everybody simplify their hiring process for us. That's our number one challenge.
And I imagine it's really hard on the candidate as well, going through multiple levels of interviews, and they're interviewing multiple companies. It must be really hard on them.
It is. Imagine that everybody's working that's looking, 98%, and information security professionals and sales professionals, they're 10, 12-hour days in, the office around other people. So to take a phone call, never mind go to an interview, is a lot of work. And it's actually, I think, one of the main reasons why people end up settling is the work of finding work is so stressful. They're hiding from their colleagues, they're hiding from their bosses, who potentially there's lots of those people that they enjoy and like. And so to hide it is really awful feeling. And they're worried about getting caught. And do people know? Am I going to get fired? Is somebody picking up on what I'm doing? Because I am doing it. I am finding ways to do it. Thus, when the offer comes, the first offer, I find a lot of people say, well, maybe I won't find exactly what I'm looking for. This is close enough, especially the more senior they get. And that really bothers me versus I'm so excited about this, right? So we really encourage people, you know what? Unless you're really excited, don't do it. It's going to happen again. I see it in 12 months. You'll do it again. You'll feel this way again. So job searching is so hard that I believe it's actually creating the retention stats in a very big way. Not the only thing that's creating them. It is definitely a piece of it.
Wow, you described that very well. And that makes perfect sense as to why they leave so fast, because they were just settling when they came in.
Yeah, it's really, been eye-opening in the information security industry, because when I was staffing strictly tech, software engineers, IT professionals, there's such volume of those jobs. It's a lot easier to see more than 2 or 3 opportunities that are really good for the person. In cyber, I find it much more difficult because there's only typically a few in each company versus 100 or hundreds, or 50. So maybe that makes me feel it even more. That being said, when you look at the stats for software and IT professionals, they're the same for retention. So, it's highly likely that it's happening there too.
Gotcha. So how does your company work that's different than Joe Schmo recruiting agency?
Well, We only do cyber. So, well, even you'll find some agencies say that. The truth is, if you look at their job postings, you'll see IT and software and what have you. We really, truly only service the cyber industry. And we are thought leaders in the industry. So both our cyber leadership and our CSO, Chief Security Officer, and myself are, and others in our organization, but mostly us, are out in the community giving back on a regular basis. So I do a lot of speaking around soft skills. I'm speaking tomorrow. Dom does a lot of talks around, securing our environments. And so we do a lot of community work. And the other thing that really differentiates us is that we assign directors, and those directors are forever with that client. So we really seek to build a relationship that continues versus a one-time. And these folks have definitely worked with me at other companies and employee-owned. Everybody speaks cyber. So not only do we service cyber, we all speak cyber, which is probably the better way to put it.
Right. The actual industry, not just how to hire people.
Yes, we know, and we know what the words mean.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
So Deidre, who would be an ideal client for your company?
And anybody who seriously wants to fill their job. I can tell you that we staff for everybody as large as, and as known as Amazon, down to small startups. And the key is the hiring manager. Is the hiring manager in the game? And as long as that's the case, it doesn't matter to me. I understand how to work with big companies and compliance. We all do. It's not a turnoff for us. The number one turnoff is whether the hiring manager's around. And we, as much as I'd love to say that, people get it right away, they don't. There's a lot of time that we have to put into selling an organization on giving us that kind of access, getting that hiring manager to put that kind of time in, so that we can work for them, service them. There's actually a lot of work that goes into selling that, believe it or not.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
So let's talk a little bit about Brainbabe.
Yeah.
So what's that?
Hashtag Brainbabe started off as a social movement. I was preparing for RSA, which is the largest cybersecurity convention of the year. It's always in San Francisco. And this was 3 years ago. And someone on my team brought in an article how RSA was asking for vendors who, come to put their booths up at conventions not to dress women scandalously. And the idea was, let's stop having booth babes. And I remember reading the article, really excited with some teammates in my room, my office, and I said, "This is so cool. I'm so glad they're doing that." And then 2 seconds later, my brain went, "Why don't we train them? Why don't we train their brains?" As a woman who was trained out of college with a social criminal justice degree, trained by tech professionals how to sell and service. I just quickly went to, why don't we train them? Why don't we make them brain babes? And so we wore hashtag brain babe, booth babe crossed out with hashtag brain babe on our shirts. And we went to RSA, and it was about 12 of us at the time. It was our first year of business. And we wore them. And next thing I know, I was being asked to speak and at Microsoft and other places. And as crazy as this sounds, I really realized how rare my career is. And how rare it is to be me as a female. And because I had worked for the same men, literally, for 20 years, whose sex never came into the picture, never minded race or religion, it just was performance. And we were about 40% women in all of our companies. It truly didn't dawn on me. And so here I am now, starting my own company, getting, changing sort of what I do on a daily basis, and being out in the community is a piece of that. I realized that unfortunately my career was rare. So I took that hashtag Brainbabe platform and started doing a lot of public speaking about why don't we have more women in tech, and what's happening to women in tech? And then I realized, wow, I'm helping bring women into tech and our retention stats are terrible. And so then I was like, oh gosh, I gotta do some training on communication skills, measurable agreements, and how do you make them and measure them? Because that's like the number one thing of breakdown. So I started publicly speaking about those things so that I don't feel guilty about bringing women into a space that's actually showing that they're leaving faster than they're coming in. And, it literally hits me, and I'm thinking of it, I'm like, gosh, these careers are so great. There's great money, there's great travel, and there are great men around. And so the platform has now morphed into a not-for-profit that is staffing conventions. So it took me a little bit to really figure out how to get rid of booth babes beyond all my talking. And, I finally realized, oh my gosh, all we did is reclothe them. We put t-shirts on them, and that hit me last year when I went to RSA. Oh gosh. And so I thought, well, we own a staffing company. We know how to staff. Let's have Brainbabe staff these conventions with STEAM students, STEM with the A, with the arts, which we need, hence my background. So anyhow, we now staff conventions with STEAM students who are going to not only be more interested and interesting in what's going on, they're male, female, they're also going to, in my opinion, it's also going to bridge this gap that we have, the skills gap, and getting more women and men. However, I'm going to focus definitely on the young girls to look at our profession, come to our conventions, work a conference, teach you how to introduce yourself, teach you how to talk to folks, those types of things. So Brainbabe has really morphed from a social movement of just saying, hey, let's train more women. Let's what about their brains? Let's not just reclothe them. How about we train them? How about they actually know what you're selling and can talk about it, because they can't. I see them showing up saying, what booth am I working, and does anybody know what they do, all the time. So that's what it's morphed into, and we're moving into even, more bridging the gap and doing things with IOC Squared and SANS, which are the two big, training institutes for cyber, and getting more women into cyber.
That's really nice. And high tech is really daunting and intimidating for young people, especially for girls. So it's a really nice thing that you're doing.
Yeah, it's so fun to watch young girls and just women in general that maybe are in a different field understand that there's something here for them, and that they could take these careers on. It's really fun to watch that happen. So thank you. And I'm enjoying it immensely.
I could imagine, sure. With regards to Brainbabe, are there any stories that you could think of where somebody came in completely fresh and raw, and they applied the skills they learned and were able to move up in their career?
Yeah, I would say, that we don't necessarily give trainings ourselves to these folks yet. We're actually creating the curriculum so that we can feed the institutes. I can tell you that the folks that come to my talks and hear how to go have a conversation with their boss, how to ask for the training they need or the support that they need. I've seen that time and time again. And men and women, my events are 50-50, because I'm always saying, us women aren't going to change things. If it's run by men, which is 95% men, then the men are the only ones that are going to change things. So I bring men and women to events and say, let's talk about win-win communication. Let's talk about making measurable agreements and managing those measurable agreements. And through that, I've seen lots and lots of success of folks having stronger relationships at work, having conversations that they thought were difficult, and getting what they wanted from those conversations. So we see a lot, and that's the one real service that I provide today, is being out there teaching that content, staffing the booths to work the conferences. We just launched 2 months ago, so our first conference is coming up, and I do expect that those folks will get internships, find jobs from meeting folks, and I can't wait to share those stories.
Yeah, and you know what? That's a really good point you bring up, which is the networking element, where by default, most people, especially people just starting in their career, may not even appreciate what that brings them.
Absolutely, absolutely. That's the best part about those events, and we all know, those of us that have been around for a little bit, it's all about who you know. We heard that our whole life, so it's actually true. So absolutely. And the booth babes aren't interested in that, right? They're not there for that. Now, I argue that if they were coached to be there for that, and that they had, somebody speaking to them about it, and showing them how interesting it is, and giving them advice, they would be. So I encourage anybody that's actually working for an agency that, is in school or has a degree, that's doing that kind of work, because it is good money, to come to SteamCon, because we're going to train them to show up and be able to participate in this community, versus be there to use their looks only.
So let's say we have this young lady who is graduating college. How would she participate in that community?
At brainbabe.org, she would register as work a conference. It's right on the homepage. There's staff a conference, staff-a-con, work-a-con. And if she registers, we post conference jobs, and we email and we call, to fill those roles as they come.
That sounds great. So when is the next conference in New York?
I know, right? I know. We are full steam ahead. So RSA this year was in April or February. And it was February where it hit me. Literally, I was at RSA checking in. And one of my colleagues was checking in. He came back to where I was standing. He said, I got to tell you this story. He said, you see that very attractive young woman? I said, yes, I do. He said, she just said, I'm here to work a booth. I have no idea. I lost my wallet on the train, coming from afar. And right then I said, my gosh, what a wasted opportunity. We could have our students here. And that's where it was born. That is exactly where SteamCon convention was born. And we launched it 2 months ago. And we will be in New York, because I don't think there's a soul that doesn't get how great this is for everybody. It's just win-win. So we expect New York to embrace us, absolutely. And all tech conferences, doesn't need to be cyber, it doesn't matter. Any conference, actually, I would do to get rid of booth babes. The truth is, as silly as it sounds sometimes, the truth is it bleeds into our cultures. It really does. And women are really challenged in working in the environments that they're working in today. And so it actually hurts us significantly. And it hurts those women, those young girls who's our community is only taking advantage of for their looks. We're not going to put any time into making sure they understand or have some knowledge of our services or our products. Somebody's not even willing to invest a couple of hours to educate that. What are we saying about how we value our young women in this culture if we're doing that? And so I feel like, hey, I've provided the solution, let's get to it. And I get how the solution has sort of never been there, it's here. So in the next 2 years, if there are still booth babes, I'm going to start calling out companies like you can't believe, because there is no reason not to do it. For right now, we've just got to get out there and let everybody know, and make it happen. However, I'm willing to take the current booth babes and give them what they need to actually have a career here. So there's no judgment. It's just we're not training the brains at all. That's why it's Brainbabe.
I love your mission. So how would a company work with Brainbabe when they're putting up an event?
Same thing, reach out to us for a conference worker and we will figure out exactly what your need is. We have an offering for strictly, somebody that's there to man the booth and have a high level conversations. We also are going to, and this is something we were asked the other day, to provide demo services. So somebody that can demo the product. So either need, we can be contacted through brainbabe.org.
Very good. So Deidre, these are two wonderful endeavors that you've created. How did you get started in this career?
Yeah, sure. It's a great question. So I answered an ad in December of '93 that said, can you think on your feet, after being fired from working at a group home because I have a social criminal justice degree and the kids were really mistreated. And so I used to write up the superiors because I saw this book in the, the conference room where I was said, you write things down. So of course I was fired at my 85th day. Devastated. And so I went to a career counseling and this lovely woman said to me, you need to be in sales and management. And I didn't even know what that meant at the time, but she showed me how to sort of get out there and sell myself and write my resume. And I started answering ads. And one of them said, can you think on your feet? Sales. And I ran into two serial entrepreneurs that had a small group of about 15 people that they had started an entry-level training program of building sales professionals in IT and software staffing. So I was brought into that world and trained to build staffing agencies. And I did that for 13 years with those founders. And then they're serial entrepreneurs. Rapid7 was a company they had started and wanted to do something with sales. And so they asked me to move over there after 13 years. And I made that jump. And, Rapid7 went public 3 years ago, just about, I think. Maybe it's 2. I can't remember now. But that was a huge success. And then they asked me to go to another software company of theirs, and I went and did that. And so for me, I lucked out. That's why when I realized, holy cow, how rare and lucky I am, I got to get out there and help, because it can be so different if we're really willing to invest in people and provide training programs and think ahead and have a way for people to move up and grow. People don't leave. I never even thought about leaving. It wasn't even a question on my mind. And I was in recruiting. I've never made a resume since that day with that woman when I was 21 years old. So still to this day, I have not made a resume since. And so it really motivates me to help folks understand that these cultures can exist. That's how I started.
Gotcha. So as you were building your career, what were some of the challenges that you faced?
I think that the number one challenge is how to keep your health and work in today's world of fast pace. You're talking big money and big hours. So, I was in the bullpens by 7:15 in the morning. And, if I was home at midnight, 1 o'clock for my first 20 years, that was pretty normal. And I found myself at 28 pretty unhealthy. And that's when I discovered yoga and a few other things, because I said, oh no, this is not ending. This is just starting. But I'd say the health balance of how to be an entrepreneur that's productive and not lose my health. That was sort of the most challenging, because it was the only point that I almost did lose the opportunity, was because of my health. Smoking 2 packs of cigarettes a day and working 18 hours. Yeah. Even at 28, my body was like, I don't think so. Even, 8 years in.
You find that as entrepreneurs, we are so driven to just work, and just keep things moving, where sometimes we need to take a step back and actually go to sleep.
Absolutely. Sleep, exercise, eating right. That for me, it was all three, and quitting smoking. 2 packs of cigarettes is not good. It's all of it. How do you? And so I've invented things like walking and talking. It started for me about 12 years ago, East, West Coast offices, and you're even working more, right? So, I walk and talk probably 2 hours a day for the last 10 years of my life. I did it also by bringing in yoga rooms into my offices, because yoga is something I love, but also I know others love. And so it's in the office, so I don't have to go anywhere. And so I've definitely put in the effort to be able to do both, not necessarily lose the hours. So that's nice. And goodness, I didn't raise kids either. So I just, to me, it's like, how does everybody do it? So I seek to really help everybody by bringing as much support in as I can.
I think that one is a really big point, because yes, I've got kids and it's hard. It's hard because you have a responsibility, when you're on your own. If the money's not coming in, okay, you starve a few days, that's okay, no one's going to die. But when you have kids and things aren't working out, it's a whole different ballgame.
Yeah, totally. I feel like I have hundreds of kids, so I was really satisfied really young with kids. For whatever reason, I've been mature as a young person, and so leadership was easy for me. And so yet I couldn't imagine having all of those kids and then actually going home to real kids. Kids, what I mean is I'm responsible for their success. That's how I was trained. If you're in leadership, you're responsible. You throw the road over, you make sure that they have the help that they need. And so, yeah, I can't imagine, and I'm hoping all leaders are doing this, then going home and doing it for little ones too. Now, I have lots of nieces and nephews, so I'm pretty sure I get it, which is why I'm so compassionate to my staff, my team, and in fact, when we first launched CyberSN, our only business model was a lot of the women was remote staffing specialists, and they're women that worked for me at my last organization who are mothers now. So they used to run high velocity bullpens where they've trained lots of youngsters in technical recruiting, and now have children and want to be more part of their lives. And so they're the ones that I built this organization with, recognizing that this could be great for them and as well. And it is. We're so thankful, all of us, to have created this together so that they can still be at home with their kids and do what they used to do in bullpens by using video technology. It's pretty cool.
It is, just like we're chatting here today with technology, 300 miles apart or something like that.
Yeah. I really believe, with senior resources, skilled resources, it's game changing for their quality of life to be able to do it. When you're training juniors, really hard. So so we've got bullpens because you can't train the juniors without them, but there's no reason why not to. And so it's really fun to see these women who have run these bullpens and still have great, satisfying careers, and because of technology can do what they do at home and still take the kids in the morning and pick them up and be at games without long commutes. And it's pretty cool.
It is. And what I love about what you're saying is that the thing you're most passionate about is what you turned into your culture in your company.
Yeah. And I'll tell you what, it's not as lucrative. So that's how much I love, seeing people happy. We joke about it all the time. The bullpens are a much different model, of course. I mean, you can never replace being around high energy, high velocity conversations, even if you're senior, the things it reminds you to do in a business that's all about humans. And so, of course, the cost model is going to be different. However, I don't care. I don't care. It makes no difference as long as we can pay for ourselves, of course. And
Right.
Yeah. I think
it all goes down to your why. Why are you in business doing what you're doing? And that's really it. It's your core value right there.
Absolutely. And that's how it happened. I was on sabbatical, and the founders and I, we didn't have many more companies going on, and I was exhausted, so it was time to take a sabbatical. But I just kept getting the phone calls from people that I love and adore, like, what are you doing? We got to do something. What are you, I don't want to work out in the world without our community. What are you doing? Phone call after phone call. So finally I was like, okay, we got to do something, because I miss you all too. And so I'd say 90% of us I've worked with the team before with some capacity of one of the companies. Yeah.
Nice. So Deidre, what keeps you motivated every day?
Exactly that happy people. I am, for whatever reason, hypersensitive to sadness and, people feeling bad. So, and I know what's going on in the world. Every day I'm thankful for, what I have. In fact, I'm hyper in tune with that. And so I like to be around people that are happy. So what really motivates me is having a business where we all can have our livelihoods and take care of our families and be powerfully positive. That really excites me, and watch people transform their lives by gravitating more towards the, love in the workforce. When that happens, it's pretty cool to watch. So I like watching people love their jobs. That's my favorite thing, because we all have to work. We all have to work. So there's just nothing better than that. And because I come from making big money, doing big deals, being a part of why companies go public, doing deals with VCs, I know that you can have high productivity in tech and have love and compassion in the workforce. I know, because I've done it my entire career, and we've printed cash, So I know it can be done, and therefore I will not tolerate anything other than that at all. And that's work for me. That's what I focus on. That's where I spend my time, is our culture mostly. I mean, I create sales ideas all the time. However, I don't execute anymore. It's the first time I don't execute necessarily, but really my time is culture thinking.
Beautiful, really nice. So Deidre, there's a statistic that many small businesses will fail within the first year of business. Where do you think entrepreneurs go wrong, and what advice would you have for them?
Sure. Well, I can tell you that while I haven't failed, where I've struggled is doing too much at once. Right? There's lots of entrepreneurs. We're visionaries. Some call us what's that when not unrealistic, but anyhow, I'll think of the word in a minute. My point is, we're always coming up with new stuff, and so I see that for me, and I would imagine it's for others. And I would say fear of risk. Lots of entrepreneurs have great ideas. To stomach the financial risk I see a lot of entrepreneurs pull back too fast, or not really know how to utilize their cash correctly. And usually that's from a sales perspective. And typically, especially in tech, most of the entrepreneurs are technical. So they, really lack the sales side of things, which is why I think that happens as much as it happens. Whereas I see sales, that's what I see, which is solving a problem, and like really understand that there's a problem that exists, versus I think there's a problem that exists because this would be cool to make. Is the problem really there? I can go talk to those people and know if it's really there. And so I think entrepreneurs fail a lot on the sales side of things, and really knowing that there's a need and that there's a community that will buy what they build. Yeah.
That's a very interesting perspective. And my background, I'm a techie, so I can definitely relate to what you're saying. That makes perfect sense.
Yeah, I see it a lot. And, we really need to have both. So I have to rely on technologists for sure. Although the more senior I've become, I've gotten better at even being able to handle that. But certainly could never do it alone. No way. Got to have both.
That's a good point, where you need synergy. You need collaboration between people.
Yes. And my technical successes in terms of sales has been because I've been, tied at the hip with technologists, and we love working together and get stuff done. Yeah.
So Deidre, I love what you've got going on here. Where do you see yourself taking this, let's say, in the next 5 years?
Absolutely changing how job searching is done for any profession. So that is the disruptive technology that we're building. I can't take it. I can't take it. I mean, the agency had been open for 2 weeks, and I was sitting with sales, listening to calls, and had been on with Career Builder and Monster and learning, because I'd left staffing for 8 years and went into software, just sort of figuring things. And I thought, oh my gosh, this is so bad. This is so bad. The digital era has made it so much worse. It was already pretty bad. And so that's when my brain went, oh no, we're doing this wrong. And I came up with what I've come up with. And so I plan on completely transforming how job searching is done for all professions. We're gonna illustrate it in cyber, and then it's gonna be, everybody's gonna mimic it. So
that'll be the best thing for the world, right?
Yes, I can't wait. It's so disheartening. I mean, I'm talking to the most brilliant people on a regular basis. My agency does all day long. And we can't, I mean, we're still, even though we're the largest, we can only help a small portion of the population that's actually job searching. It's so mind-blowing to see executives and VPs and directors take 6 months and what happened to find something and what happens to them. I can't take it. I saw it right away. It's socially, I say this all the time, like, okay, if the pursuit of happiness, when is it if it's not for these professionals? They're miserable.
Yeah.
You know? It makes me crazy. So I really believe that 2 things will happen by disrupting how we job search. Because it'll be so easy, and because it's going to change the game so significantly, that companies that don't treat their employees correctly or don't have the intention of retention, they're going to lose their people so fast that they're going to have to. So right now, a whole team leaving is sort of impossible. Fast forward.
I've seen it happen.
It happens, but it's very rare, right? When it does happen, it certainly wakes people up. So, I believe that if job searching is made simple, like truly simple, then and people who are qualified and interested can find each other fast, then cultures will have to completely reboot how they function. And that's what we need, because it's not changing fast enough. There is way too much emotion in the space, and blame and pointing fingers, versus we have a plan. We all know what we're doing. It's really hard to fail when the plan's detailed. And so the easy solution for everybody before my solution comes out is start making measurable agreements such that you can really work with people and lose the emotions and the blame. It always comes down to, we thought you meant this, or I thought you said this. And that gives power to those that have it to wreak havoc on a culture. And I'm tired of it. I'm tired of watching it.
And that goes to communication 101.
Without a doubt. And, when do we teach that in your master's or your computer science degree or your engineering degree? Where's that course? And even if there is one enough? I don't think so. Gone are the days, when I first got into technical staffing, January of 1994, I was trained and I placed software engineers specifically myself for years and years. I was trained to ask, will they be in the back room, or will they have to interact with people? That was literally #1 job order question. And of course, those days are gone. All we do is talk to each other, even as software engineers, and yet where's the classes on how to talk to each other? It's fascinating. It's fascinating. So that's why I'm out there giving these classes. I'm getting these classes certified by IC Squared and SANS, and I'm going to make videos as fast as I can. But it's really crazy. It's so crazy. It's funny.
It is. And by the way, I started my career as a computer programmer, and I sat in the back room programming, so I know exactly what you're talking about.
Right? It's fascinating. Now geek is chic, so lucky you and lucky me.
Yeah. So Deidre, if you could rewind the clock, let's say 12 months, would there be anything differently that you'd do?
Oh, just in these last 12 months?
Or anytime?
Yeah, I thought about that. I think that two things. One is actually take legal advice. So I want to say this to entrepreneurs. We all seek it. Do we take it? I've watched this even with my friends. Number two would be I'm a big fan of trust. And there's only been 2 times in my career where that has been a problem for me, which is when I made it blind trust versus trust and verify. And so I'm a big fan of trusting in people. But those are the 2 things that I'd say, the 2 times where I look back and I say, gosh, if I would have made that, if that would have been different, that would have been nice. But that's really it. And when I say legal advice, we're all signing all kinds of contracts with, all kinds of people. And I, in general, prefer to take the easy, sort of, we're all going to do good business. But that doesn't mean that's the way the world works. So anywho, those are the 2 things for me, but I have no regrets. It's more advice,
Cool. So now we get to my favorite part, which is answering questions from the audience.
Sure.
We actually had a whole bunch of questions come in because what you're doing is a really important mission, and cybersecurity as an industry, it's a very hot topic, and a lot of people are concerned about security. So we got a lot of questions in. The first question is from Donald Perlman. He's a CEO of Blue Dog Graphics in Hackensack, New Jersey. And Donald writes, how safe are Apple Mac computers compared to PCs? Are there different cybersecurity procedures for Macs? How often should antivirus software be updated, and how effective are the antivirus software?
Lovely. Lovely, lovely. So great question. So neither are safer than the other. It's really the person behind the keyboard. That being said, there are less Macs in the world than there are PCs. And so the Macs aren't on the cusp of attacks compared to the PCs, which is why everybody feels like they're less vulnerable. So for example, Christmas last year, I got a malware attack, and it's, Christmas, of course, when we're most vulnerable, and I clicked on it and immediately saw the skull and bones, right? And oh God, calling my cyber team, and thank gosh it was an attack that was not made for a Mac, only because they were going with the biggest hit, right? Sort of the larger scale attacks are not necessarily made for the Macs, because there's just less of them. So it's less of a return for the attackers, right? That being said, they have to be updated, they all have to, get the same love. Therefore it's less about choosing one or the other and more about making sure that we're, the people behind the keyboard know how to use them. And that we're still updating and configuring, and, they all configure and need passwords and need updates. There's just less Macs, so less of the attacks are less geared toward the Macs. And as soon as we say that, there'll probably be some Mac attack or something. Yep. You know what I mean? Like, don't find comfort in that, is my point.
Good point. So when you see that pop up on your screen asking you, do you want to update Windows or Mac?
Yeah. Yes. Always yes. Always yes. And for the antivirus question, my Nordis virus pops up every day. It drives me crazy. That's important. But it should be set to automation. The vendors have, gotten smart, and if you've got things set up to automation, and you should be good. They release, like 2 signatures a day at this point for our endpoint solutions, all automated.
Great. Thanks.
Yeah.
Okay, so next question is from Bruce Lee, CEO of Integrity Facility Service in Dumont, New Jersey. So Bruce asks, what cyber threat concerns you the most? Where does the responsibility of private firms begin and end in cybersecurity?
Sure. I love this question because my answer is not going to be what anybody thinks. So the number one threat that concerns me the most is our shortage of talent It's a national security issue. We don't have enough defenders, and specifically the lack of women is a massive, massive problem in that all the studies have been done. Do we need any more studies that tell us that when men and women work together, we're much more productive? Never mind the fact that since we have such a big talent shortage, if we groomed our girls to think that tech and cyber was sexy and interesting and that they could do it and all of those things, then we wouldn't have this national security issue, and we wouldn't have to be going to other countries and training other people to supplement. And so to me, the biggest threat truly, literally, is the talent gap. We are outnumbered. It's a massive problem.
You're right. It's counterintuitive, but it makes perfect sense, because if everybody were fluent in cybersecurity, it would be a non-issue.
Exactly. It's pretty mind-blowing, And we literally are going and training folks that don't, even speak English. And I'm not against that. I'm saying, how about we do some more here? Because you know where our young girls are going when they're graduating school? So I've got a Berkeley grad, I've got a NYU grad that never thought of tech. They never thought of cyber. And when I met them when they were just out of college, it was, well, why would I think about that? I'm not a programmer. This is a massive problem, and now they're thriving in tech. My cousin just graduated from Harvard, and she's going to Salesforce. So we're starting to see some of it, but man, most young girls are told that it's not the place for them, and so either or math isn't for them. And then to make it even worse, if you don't like math, or if math isn't for you, well, then there certainly is no other job out in technology for you, is really the message we're sending. And the reality is there's sales, there's marketing, there's leadership, there's project management, product management, all that have nothing to do with, are you great in math? Did you do well in computer science? And I want to see a lot more girls go into math and computer science. I absolutely do. And I want to make sure that there's the other girls know that if that doesn't really work for you, if we're selling it correctly and it still doesn't work for you, there's all these other jobs. And if you have both, you are golden. So I promote that too. So that's the number one answer there. And then for private firms, the responsibility is definitely with the firm. This is not a compliance, security isn't about compliance and regulation. One can make it about that, and yet when they feel a breach, they're going to wish they didn't. And so what I say is that, it's about taking security seriously from cradle to grave to minimize risk. And whether you're private or public, it should not matter. It's about building safer pacemakers, building safer automobiles, eventually, becoming breachless. Why not? Let's strive for that. Let's understand that, whether we're private or public, let's figure out how to do that. This isn't going away. It's over. We are now all in tech. So when I say we need to reframe, I think one of your listeners asked that question, what did I mean by the tech community needs to rethink what it means to be in tech and cyber? Is that it's not just whether or not you have a math background. It's everybody is in tech now, and we all have different roles within tech. We need to think that when we're all in cyber, we need to think that way. It's only going to become more of a need, not less, with IoT.
Yeah, absolutely. And security begins and ends with us. That's really what the answer is.
Exactly.
Great. Okay, so our next question is from Gary Jean Lewis from Rockland County, New York. And what Gary asks is, I would like to know if you offer entry-level training programs within your company for someone who has a master's degree in organizational leadership and who has a great interest in the cybersecurity field.
Wow, cool. I don't know anybody with that type of degree, so I'm certainly interested in talking to that person. I would love to know what they've been taught, and I think that's fascinating. It's awesome. That's awesome. I would love to talk to that person, so you have to send them over to me.
Yes, I will hook you up with Gary.
Yeah, organizational. Love it.
Okay, so our next question is from Lisa Samataro, founding partner of Keller Williams in Ridgewood, New Jersey. And Lisa's the one that asked that question that you mentioned earlier. So in your bio, you note that you were hired as an entry-level college graduate, and you believe the tech community needs to expand its awareness of what it means to be in tech and to be in cybersecurity. So
Right.
can you explain what you mean by that?
Give some more color. So my title has been sales, and then it became, CEO. And CEO of tech companies. So I don't have a math degree and I don't have a computer science degree. And so my point is that we need to recognize that there are folks that can be very valuable in the industry who don't come from math and science degrees, and so that we get more folks interested in checking us out. I happen to fall into this. This was by accident. We don't have time for accident. We don't have time for every once in a while a young woman figures it out, or somebody helps a young woman figure it out every once in a while. There is 1% female leadership in the executive level in tech. 1%. That's pretty scary. 10% overall, any position in a company being women. That's crazy. It's just nuts. This is where all the new money is. This is where freedom lies, as far as I'm concerned. And we're teaching our youth that it's not for our young girls. It's not for them. So I want us to expand and recognize that all humans, certainly young girls, there's a place for them. And yes, encourage them for math, but don't, just because they don't fall into that, loving it, don't discourage them from tech, or help them understand that there's still stuff in tech for them. Engineering reports to me, software development reports to me. I don't have to have done that role to have that impact. And the folks that work for me like working for me, and we're successful. And it's not just once. So it can't be because I know math, because it's not. That's not how I got here.
That's a great point. And so 2 other questions that Lisa has.
Yeah.
What are the 3 most important things a business should do to protect itself from being hacked? And question number 2 is, I've heard repeatedly that using smart devices in the home create vulnerability to hacking. Can you talk about that, please?
Interesting. I'll have to ask you that one again, just in case because the first one was a great question. So what are the 3 things we need to do? So I would say definitely, since we've already discussed that it's people, and this one I didn't prepare for, is training, right? Training, from payroll to C-level. We need that. We need lots and lots of training. We need to know where our data lives. That's the number one thing, and know where our most crown jewels live, because we can't predict everything. There is no such thing as 100% secure. So in my opinion, know your crown jewels, know where that data lies, and really make sure that data is highly protected. And then we need to respond to the needs of more budget. Unfortunately, we've got a lot of people unwilling to release the budget for security still today. And so I see that, and I can tell based on the stress levels of the current employees that, there's going to be a lot missed. When you're overworking your cyber professionals, eventually that's a vulnerability. And I see it a lot. So I think that, off the top of my head, those are the 3 things that I would give today. If I had time to prepare, it might be a little different, but not much.
Great. And the second question, I've heard repeatedly that using smart devices in the home create vulnerability to hacking. Can you talk about that, please?
Small devices in the phone. Sure. So as we add IoT devices, our refrigerators, our coffee makers, I know I can change my heat and my cold, and my place in New Hampshire, it's life-saving. So everything becomes more complex, and those are all security vulnerabilities, and they have to be managed. You can't just leave them. You got to have cyber hygiene. And I'm really hoping our vendors that are creating all these devices get better and better at sending literature and education on cyber hygiene.
For sure. And that's the first time I heard that term. Is that a new term?
Well, our CSO, Don Glavich, it's one that he speaks about and is in one of his books. So I'll give him that credit. So yeah, it's a nice one, right? Because we all brush our teeth every day. I mean, it needs to be as basic as our hygiene routines. Absolutely. The patching and password stuff has just got to be like brushing our teeth. I mean, the basics.
Yeah, like not using default passwords and things like that, right?
Yep.
Great. Okay, next question is from Claudia McDermott. She is the Executive Director of BNI in New Jersey, Northeast, and Newark. So Claudia writes, every week it seems there is some data breach somewhere. Government, healthcare, business. As security gets smarter, so do those who would breach that security, whether for financial gain or just like climbing a mountain because it's there. Just to show the world that it can be done. We all have business data that needs to be protected. We all have personal information that we don't want others to have access to. In an ever-evolving world, is there any way to continue to safeguard one's information?
That's awesome. There's lots of ways, that's for sure. And there's lots of, it falls back to where's the data? So I'd say, what are you trying to protect? Otherwise, you could be protecting stuff all day long, especially personally. What do you really want to protect? Where is it? And once you know that, I think focus on encryption. Especially, we didn't talk about cloud yet, or maybe we will, maybe we won't. I know we're running out of time, but, encryption. That is beyond know where your risk is, know where your data that you want to protect is. I would say encryption is the best way. And, you're protecting the data, not the systems. That's the focus. Focus on what the data is that you're protecting. For a long time in cyber, we've been focusing on systems more than data. It's just starting to change. People are just starting to really focus on that with the risk focus.
Great point there. And question number 2 from Claudia. It's easy to feel that everything has been invented when it comes to tech. We now carry a computer in our pocket. We're using 3D printers to create organs. One wonders, what can possibly be on the horizon in the world of tech?
I know, right? I've been saying for years, I want to live as long as possible because I just got to know. It's fascinating. Although I'm sure the things that we're going to see are pretty scary because, as you said, we're printing body organs. So I think if we're at body organs, it is definitely going to be a trip to see what happens in the next 20 to 30 years. So, my goodness, those of us that are sci-fi folks. It's fascinatingly scary, actually.
Yeah. Okay, our next question is from Barbara Noyes, a police officer with the South Nyack PD in Rockland County, New York. So Barbara asks, how can individuals keep their data safe? And what should they do when getting rid of a phone or a computer?
Got it. Right. So encryption is going to be key. I mentioned that already. When getting rid of your phone, you can go to settings and have it wiped, which is really, really important. And it's right in your settings. On a laptop or a PC, it's a little bit more work. You can download a free product. I mean, the one that comes to mind is, I think, Bcam or something like that, or DBAN, DBAN, and that will help make sure that you wipe your computer. So you got to wipe them, and the computer's harder to do than the phone. And then encryption, figure out what data you're trying to protect, and encrypt it.
Great. And I just learned something. I mean, in over 20 years in tech, I never heard of that tool. So that's great.
Awesome. There's also a DoD, or it's a DoD underwrite. I think that overwrite. Yeah. So.
Deidre, I know you're a busy gal, and we're going to let you go. But just before we do, how do people connect with you?
CyberSN.com is our website. I'm at Diamond at CyberSN.com. I give out my email. Usually respond within a week. No, I'm just kidding. And happy to engage with folks.
Great. I'll put that in the show notes so people can just click on it and go right to you.
Awesome.
Excellent. Deidre, do you have any parting words of wisdom that you'd like to share with the audience?
I would reiterate that people don't come to work to fail. It doesn't mean that they're doing what they need to do. It means that they need to be led with very clear, measurable agreements, and therefore they most likely won't fail. And then please, let's get the word out to young women and women in other fields today, or want to go back to work from being a stay-at-home mom. There are lots of jobs in cyber. It's going to take training. It's going to take going to school. However, as we all know, time flies, and there's great careers here. So please, let's spread the word to women and girls that there's great jobs awaiting for them.
Awesome. Deidre, thank you so much for joining us today and sharing your time and your wisdom. I really appreciated having you.
Yeah, absolutely. It was a lot of fun. Love to come back when we launch our solution here that's going to revolutionize employment. We definitely have to get back together.
Absolutely. We'll be doing a sequel.
Awesome.